There was a wonderful guy who had a nice little pond set out at his house, and he's down in Louisiana and loved animals, loved bird and fowl, as most people in Louisiana do. And he decided that he wanted to add to the ambiance of his pond. He had noticed that the ducks would fly in, these mallards would fly in at certain times of the year as they were making their transition. And he decided that he wanted one of those for himself. He had some other kind of ducks out there and stuff that were domesticated, and they stayed on the pond year round. But this beautiful mallard had landed onto the water. He decided that he needed that mallard. So he started to feed out with the mallard was. For a few days he did that, and he set up a little box trap. And he thought, if I can just catch that mallard, it will be mine forever. It would be wonderful. So he went in, and sure enough, he caught the mallard. He really couldn't keep it in a box. There's no way that would work. He wouldn't survive. So he took a little string, a little cordage, and he tied it to one of the feet of the mallard. And gave it about 20, 30 yards with the string and tied it to the end of his dock. He said, none of my mallard will stay in my pond. It can still move around, it can fly, it can enjoy life, but it'll always be with me. I will train this mallard to be here with me. And sure enough, the whole summertime went, and the mallard was happy and content, and it swam around, and he fed it, and he had an incredible relationship with this mallard duck. But the season started to change. And sure enough, a bunch of other mallards, as they always do, started to fly overhead. And he heard the squawking of the other mallards up in the sky. And he watched his newly trained duck, who had been totally content sitting on the pond, who had done what he could feed it and enjoy it, and almost like you didn't even remember the string was on his foot anymore. He watched the natural instinct of the mallard kick in. And out of nowhere, these wings expanded. And he starts seeing his duck just flap harder and harder, and he saw him rise up out of the water, and you can see the string on his foot. And it was going, and all of a sudden you see this jerk motion where it just stopped. And he thought, he's still my duck. But the duck just kept on pushing harder and harder and harder till finally that string broke. And he watched his duck fly away with the rest of the ducks with a 10-foot string on his foot. I tell you this for a reason, because this morning we're going to talk about this idea of being content. And it's really easy for us as we talk about this, and we talk about this idea of this duck and what can be done to get confused with contentment and complacency. Because they're so close to the same thing, but they are so different from each other. See, being content is a state of happiness or satisfaction in the situation that you're in. Whereas complacency is self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied with unawareness of the actual dangers and deficiencies that are there. You're, both senses, you're happy. You're good. It's wonderful. When we first look at them, they look so much the same, but they are so different. The scriptures talk so much about the idea of being content. It also warns us about being complacent. Even though they are so much alike, the differences are devastating. In a spiritual sense, when you look at the idea of contentment, it's being satisfied where God has placed you. Being satisfied that where God has you at this moment is where God needs you at this moment. Understanding that in the trial that you may be sitting in, the situation that you may be at, that you can find happiness in that. That it is there for you. But God does not call for you to be complacent in the situation that you're at. still calls for you to be actively moving and working and pushing and doing for him, even in all situations. In Philippians 4, it says it like this: I'm not saying this because I am in need, but I've learned to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secrets of being content in any and every situation. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all of this through him who gives me strength. And Paul Lansbury says, I've figured it out. No matter what the circumstances are, I can find happiness. My happiness is not determined by things of this world. I found something bigger than that. Does that mean as we read about Paul that he just kind of sat around and went, oh, Jesus, I'm good? He says, no, in all situations, I still move, I still do. This is the same Paul that gets locked up in prison, in the inner cells, and in the midnight hour, is singing praises to God, finding contentment, finding happiness in the midst of the worst struggle possible. Last I remember when I read that, when God opened up the doors, he didn't say, well, we're pretty happy right here. His goal was always to do more. His goal was always to fulfill what God called for him to do. But no matter where he was in that journey, he could find his happiness. In Hebrews 13, verse 5, it says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. And that's where we find our happiness. Knowing that God is never going to take off from us. He's never going to turn his back on you. And so in all these things that we go through, whether it be our health, our finances, our family, our relationships that we're in, when we are struggling through some of those, God will not leave you. We don't have to be complacent. We don't have to be the other way, but we can be content that God has got this. It's complacency is settling for the place that God is telling you to leave. As Christians, when we become complacent, we get to the point where we just settle and we hunker down in there and we stay right where we are, even though God is calling for us to make change. Well, this feels good. Well, I like this. Well, this is the way that it's always been. Well, this is the way they did it. This is the way I've always done it. This feels comfortable. And we become complacent if we're not careful. In Proverbs 1:32 it says, for the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of a fool will destroy them. He warns us in the Proverbs that complacency is devastating. That when we get to the point where we are just happy and satisfied with the way things are, and we don't feel like we need to do anything else, whenever we are sitting in a situation that maybe at one time was a positive situation, maybe at one point was a good thing for us, that has turned and that has changed, that God calls for us to move, that we're called to move. But when we're complacent, we don't mind sitting where we are. See, complacency leads to conformity. And this is our biggest battle that we're battling right now. One of the big ones. Is that we get into life and we get into things and we're comfortable with things are, and we like the way that things are working out for us, and we've made peace with the world, and the world's made peace with us, and because I'm comfortable, through my complacency, I don't really want to change. Talk about change. I want to read about how God wants me to do things, I really don't want to change because if I do, it's going to be uncomfortable. See, God calls for us to be content, but not to wallow in our sin. God does not call for us to stay embedded into something that is not healthy for us. God calls for us to take action and make a difference. Because if we don't, we end up having problems. In Romans 12:2 it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I can't conform, I can't get complacent and live the way the world wants me to live. I can't get complacent and just doing what everybody else is doing. I can't get complacent and just roll with what everybody else is doing. God doesn't call for me to do that. He calls for me to be content in my struggle. He calls me to be content in the things that I'm going through, knowing that he is there with me, that he will get me through that I can still find happiness in the midst of my struggle. But he does not call for me to succumb to the wrong. He doesn't call for me to lay back and just let the world happen. He calls for me to do more. He says, you're not a part of this pattern of the world. Don't conform to it. Transform. Think about it. Change your mindset. Find your happiness in him and not in other things. Don't settle for what the world has to offer, because God has so much more for you. God is offering so much more than what the world does. God is giving you the opportunity to find that happiness in all things. Unconditional. And that's what he calls for us to have. Jesus kind of tells it this way in a story. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall, because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew, and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. You know, we sing that song, right? We built our house. We built our house. Do we ever explain it to our kids what that really means? That the truth of the matter is that the wise man kind of got a rough plot of land. The wise man got the rock. The wise man got the part that if you lay down on it, it doesn't feel that great. The wise man got the heavy, hard, settled piece of ground. And the foolish man, he went over there and he said, oh, feel the comfort of the sand. It's so nice. It's close to the water. It's right here where the fish are. It's wonderful. I'm going to build my house right here. I got the best view. I get the breeze off of the water. It's awesome. And he built and he conformed. And the problem is, just like if you've ever been to a beach before, sands are continually shifting. The bar is always moving. Things are never quite steady and the same. And Jesus says, the foolish man, he conforms to what's around there and he builds around it thinking that it's going to last. But when the hard times come, when the waters rise, when the winds blow, when life struggles happen, there's nothing to anchor onto. You just crash. The wise man, he found contentment on the rock. He took what God had given him, and he built his house on that. He didn't complain about it. He didn't say it was unfair. He didn't argue with God that that's what it was. He took and he built on that. Here's an example so we can understand. You build these things off of my teachings. Yes, my teachings are not the most comfortable for you at times. Yes, my teachings and the things I call for you to do are going to be challenging at times. Loving some people is very challenging. Giving of yourself is challenging. Doing for others can be challenging. And when we build off of these teachings onto that, and we are content in listening and doing and being a part of God, that's whenever we are solid. And that's when great things start to happen. And things really start to happen the right way. John Wooden, the famous basketball coach, said it this way. I got my sports reference in today, Jake. He said, peace of mind is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. That's what God calls for us to do. In all situations, to do our best, to be able to do the best that we can possibly do in His name. In situations, no matter what it was. The funny thing when I read this is that He didn't say self-satisfaction is having a winning season. Self-satisfaction is shooting the game-winning shot. Self-satisfaction is dunking a basketball. None of that is in His quote. Self-satisfaction is knowing you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. See, God calls for us to be content, but to strive and to move and to be. In 1 Corinthians 9:24 says, do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. It's kind of like common sense, right? What's the purpose if you're not trying to win? Unfortunately, in our society today, we have kind of stripped some of that away because we want everybody to feel good. But the truth of the matter is, I don't know too many Olympians that go, I just thought it'd be fun to go there. Right? I've running some tremendous hours or hard work because I just thought, a participation trophy would be nice. That's what I was always looking for. He says, run to win. And see, some of you may enjoy running. That may be like a passion for you. I don't understand you people at all. It makes no sense to me that I want to physically punish myself so I can find joy. If you're going to make me run, I'm going to run for a couple of reasons. One is to get away from something I'm scared of. If we're racing, I plan on winning. And I don't race unless I win. That's the way it works. So if you're faster than me, don't even ask, because I'm not going to do it. Okay, that's just the way it works. I race my kids till they get older, and then I'll just tell them I'm too fast, you just go on. So, because I'm going to run in such a way to win. I'm going to serve God in such a way not to just exist in the church. I don't want to just have a title of Christian. I don't want to just, it's part of, that's who I am. No, if I'm going to serve God, I want to serve God. If I want to do for Him, I want to do my best for Him. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time here? There are so many other things if I'm not a part of God that I could do on my weekend. How many of you have friends that are camping or traveling or doing all these other things, right? If I want to serve God, I want to serve God. If I want to sacrifice for Him, then let's make it worth it. So Paul says that we don't need to do things half-heartedly. And complacency leads to half-heartedness. He says, be content where you are, but continually strive to get where God wants you to be. That's our goal. Our goal is to please Him. And our movement pleases Him. Being content that God has put us where we need to be pleases Him. Paul continually in all of the circumstances Through all the struggles that he had in trying to preach the word, the shipwrecks, the beatings, the prison, he found joy. He was content, but he never stopped. He never stopped. We don't have an excuse to stop. Well, my life's just so busy. I'm getting older now. Well, I've already done my fair share. Well, back in the day, that's when I was really not how that works. When we start saying those kind of phrases, we're saying, my complacency rules over. Not, I'm content today, but I always want to strive for more. God calls for us to do more. God calls for us to be more. Not in such a way that we look at other people's things or where other people are at and we are jealous or envious because we don't have what they have. But rather thankful, as it's been brought up multiple times this morning in worship. Thankful that God has placed us right where we are. I appreciate Dylan's comments so much. And that it's so easy for us to look and think that if I only, and if I could have had that, and if, boy, it's so hard, and look at how they are, and start comparing, instead of just doing as he said, just thank you, God. I already have so much. You have been so good to me. Thank you. I find satisfaction in being with you in all circumstances. And I just want to be closer to you every day. I strive and I push to be closer in relationship with God every day. Because the truth of the matter is we are like those mallards. We've come through different seasons in our lives and we've landed in a good place. And it's easy for us to just be satisfied with that place where we are. It supplies our basic needs. It takes care of where we are at the moment. But God is calling us to fly with him. He is in the sky calling you. Come with me. There's something greater for you than right there. Yes, you've been provided for the moment, but it's time. It's time to go. And when God calls for you, you have to decide. As Christians, our natural instinct is to go. But as we go, the road has that tether on our foot. Thing is, are you sure that's really what you want to do? We're not going to make it easy for you to go and be with him and fly with him and do the things that he's calling for you to do. Is that really what you want to do? Because life is easy right here. But as Christians, we have to flap our wings. We have to push hard and break the things that are holding us back from being in a relationship with him. To no longer be complacent, but be content that if we fly, God will lead us where we need to be. And God will take care of us if we do that. This morning, are you in that situation that you've been sitting on the pond for quite a while, you don't even remember what it was that tied you down anymore? You've been so used to it for such a season that you've almost forgot that there's something more. Is God calling for you to make some adjustments in your life? To fly with him again? Is there something holding you back? Is there something that's tethered you from being what you need to be with him? To have that relationship with him that he earnestly calls for you to have? If there is, you can break past that. You just have to want to. You have to hear his call. You understand that there are many of us that from time to time get tied up as well. But there are even more of us that are up there flying and soaring with him. And we want you with us. You won't be alone. We want to be here for you, to give you that opportunity to fly. We can help you with that this morning with prayers, with study, with helping you with your relationship with Christ. Will you let us do that this morning as we stand and Parker leads us in our song?